Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today is a special episode. I have Mark Dede on the line, and he is owner of Two Wrestling Cats Coffee House and also the champion for the best graphics so far on the show with him with that big, beautiful coffee cup. Mark, hey, I just want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to talking with you.
Oh man, Mark. So as I've gotten to know you more through this interview process, and also spoiler alert for everyone listening, Mark is going to be a featured author in one of our upcoming books, which we'll talk about that a little bit more today. But I'll tell you, Mark, since I've gotten to know more about your story and how you had a great career in corporate America, but decided at some point you wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more, and you started Two Wrestling Cats Coffee House. And I'm excited to get into the journey today. What that took, the twists and turns. Opening a business is never easy, but I know people wait in line for your coffee and to come into your coffee shop. So excited to get into this. But we'll start this episode, Mark, the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Mark, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Mark, what mission matters to you?
So in my taking early retirement and all, I was looking for getting the magic back in my early days of experimentation. So I decided that I would take early retirement and open up a coffee shop. But in this case, I was going to intertwine my value system, and I was going to include things such as love, inclusion, kindness, charity, and bring this forward in a way that people would want to come into the shop. And so the reason that Two Wrestling Cats mission matters is that today's world is a little rough. And if I can offer folks a few minutes, a couple of hours of sitting around and enjoying themselves, and then they leave with some joy, I feel that my mission has been accomplished.
I love it, Mark. And you fit right into our community. And it's great to have you as part of our Mission Matters community of other mission-based entrepreneurs and business leaders. And I guess just to get us going, your background, I mean, molecular biology, chemistry, not coffee. I mean, you work for Pfizer, some other big companies. Maybe tell us a little bit more about where you started, because I think that transition's interesting.
Oh, yeah. So I started actually in graduate school in 1979 at the University of Connecticut in their molecular biology program. So anyway, I'm an old cloner, as I call myself to my customers. And that means actually, I used to clone individual genes, and that was an art form. And nowadays, if you watch any forensic file program, there's computer programs that have everybody's DNA in them, and the Ancestry program. But I left and I postdoced at Merck Sharp and Dome Lab in Pennsylvania. That was a great experience. But I moved from cloning and all that to more applied research. I did pharmacology. I worked in the areas of bone biology, inflammation research. I left Pfizer in 1994 after a 4-year stint there and went into stem cells. And so I put together the program that actually delivered the first clinically approved set of mesenchymal stem cells into patients as a safety study, which was FDA approved. And that was back in the late 1990s, at which time I was traveling back and forth to Seattle, where we were working with the folks at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and I got attracted to the coffee industry. And I spent the next 10 years working through various acquisitions and stuff in the pharmaceutical industry. And I left Pfizer in 2012, taking an early retirement.
And so one of the reasons why I wanted you to, elaborate on your career is because you were happy in corporate America. I mean, you did well. We've talked before. You did well in terms of you had satisfaction in the work you were doing, and you did meaningful work. But at some point, you decided to make that transition to coffee, which not everybody kind of may understand it at first glance. But tell us a little bit more about maybe how that transition took place.
Yeah, so the seed for that was actually planted back right when I got out of grad school.
Yeah.
After I got out of grad school, I realized that, this is a very interesting, and I love the creative environment, but I think I probably spent about 15 years in it. So my time with corporate America, like I say, I worked for Merck, I worked for Pfizer, I worked for Cirrus Therapeutics. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
But at 45, I was sort of ready to do something different, but I had 3 young kids. So then I decided I just would stay. I would work as hard as I could. They were very generous. I just felt that I needed to do something different. And so when the opportunity arose, I grabbed it.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of people that'll watch this now and into the future, and they have, great careers in corporate America as well. And they maybe at some point decide that, that they want to do something a little bit more, whether it's maybe open a coffee shop, but it could be opening a lot of other businesses or chasing other dreams that they've had, or maybe they had to put on the shelf for a bit while they were, moving through certain phases in their life. What kind of things would you tell them, like with the benefit of hindsight and you kind of making that leap? Because that is a leap.
So yes, so quite a leap. And I think that you really have financial considerations and all. I mean, I don't make money like I did back then, but I found that money wasn't the thing that was driving me in the industry. I stayed in the industry because I could make money and that I knew I could use it at a later date. So I think that's it. I think that you have to have your priorities around your finances and how you're going to use them in the later date. And then I think be ready. You have to be ready. Emotionally, I think that although I thought I'd be out in 15 years, I had 3 young kids. And you have those considerations. And I actually, in 1998, incorporated a business called Molecular Foods with a lawyer neighbor of mine. And it was around the science education through food products. And it was a S corporation. We were going to do it, but my kids were very young. And I realized, and I think everybody thought that I was a little bit maybe premature in my getting out of corporate America. And so I stayed, and I enjoyed the time.
Yeah. And so now you have this idea, you decide I'm going to launch a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Where did this come about? How did you actually do it? Because did you know exactly where you were going, or was there a little bit of searching phase there?
Yeah. So that's a good question, because I happened to be in working for Pfizer in Groton, Connecticut, living in Niantic, Connecticut, which is on the coast. And I wanted to go to an area that had an unmet need. So I looked around a little bit, and my local, like Niantic, New London, those all had plenty of coffee shops. And I approached Economic Development Commissioner in East Haddam, and there, lo and behold, they really had a need. You had the Goodspeed Theater. They didn't have any coffee shops that could serve patrons, and they thought that it would be a really good fit. So I looked around a little bit, and lo and behold, and here comes one of my cats. Here comes Antea. Sorry, Antea. I told her that maybe she would make some kind of a cameo, but
I knew she would.
She was going to. No, thanks, Andy. And so I found this place in East Haddam, and I've just simply enjoyed the stay, enjoyed the community, and tried to build my business around them.
Now, you were very educated in obviously your previous career to be able to do the work you did. Now, how did you get the education piece when it came to launching a coffee house? Because you didn't just, open the doors and start pouring. Like, there was an education side of things.
Oh, yes. I did a lot of educating myself. I went on the internet and I found a book that said, so you want to be a coffee house owner or so. And it was, like a 200-page paperback. And it gave me a sense. I read through and I said, I can do this. I can really do this. And it wasn't theirs was like a cookie cutter. But I just had the sense of what I needed to do, and it gave me enough guidance. And then I just did some more reading. I met up with a local coffee shop owner out of Old Lyme, and she was very helpful in equipment issues. And then I went to a coffee school out in Portland, Oregon, on Pfizer's dime. They had a reskilling grant of $5,000, and I went out to the American Barista and Coffee School, Portland, Oregon, in 2012. And it was at that time that I realized that they had convinced me that I could probably pull this off if I had enough resources, like really the financial resources and all.
Yeah.
And all the education. Everything else has been learned on the job. All right, girl. Let's.
So she knows we're talking about her. That's what it is.
She knows.
So,
She knows cats, and cats
so
were important too.
oh yeah. So you go to school, go to coffee school. You obviously are making this transition, and you're tooling yourself by reading, doing other things. Did you do anything on the business side of things, like on how to actually run and operate a business? Because I feel like many individuals, when they go out and they become entrepreneurs for the first time, they're not always equipped with that piece of it.
Yeah, I think that I probably could have used a little bit more.
As could we all, by the way. It's not easy.
Things like there are really a lot of. Fortunately, I was able to pull everything together on my own because I had some time. I had a good year that I did this. So I met up with folks that could do my bookkeeping. I had a tax accountant. I had, I just actually I'm go on now. I had enough wherewithal, and I didn't have such a big ego that I couldn't ask people. I think you have to seek it out and all. Tax issues. I had the local economic development coordinator help me tie in with the Connecticut Public Department of Public Health, because I had an artesian well that had to be used as my water source, and there were a lot of issues around that. And so it's really about making sure that you get out there and talk to the people and find the experts and all. And you'll be surprised how many people will help you very easily, very readily.
I'm a big fan of that. And I always like to bring that out, especially when individuals are leaving corporate America and getting into the entrepreneurial space, because even though they may have been highly educated, really, in their particular field, like when you move from one field to another, you're not supposed to have it all figured out at first, like, especially running a business. Like I've talked to entrepreneurs and I've interviewed entrepreneurs that were responsible for, $1 billion profit centers in these huge corporations. But when they went out and started running their own P&L, their own business, like it is different, right?
I'm quite sure that it's quite different. I mean, this is my first experience. I look back, I think of somebody coming up to me at the end of year one and saying, "Hey, congratulations, you made it through year one." And I said, "Well, I didn't know that was such a big deal. I wasn't going anywhere,
That is the thing, Mark.
And now when I tell people that I've made it through 10 years, it's people like, wow, and I say, wow, and I still enjoy it very much.
And you not only made it, you've made a difference. You made a difference in your community. I can tell, by the way, because I follow you on social media, on Facebook. I've seen the website, and you really are making a difference and impact in your community and really providing a great service. And you can tell, so even some of the things that you're doing around inclusion, around diversity, and then around creating a great experience with the coffee house. So maybe let's start with going a little bit into the main event. So Two Wrestling Cats Coffee House. Tell us a little bit more about the concept and how it was launched.
So again, I was making some homemade beer, and I was on the phone with my nephew, and he was making beer up in Ithaca. I looked down and I said, I want to put a fake brewery name on this. And I said, how about Two Wrestling Cats? My two kittens were on the floor wrestling, Bruno and Larry. And so he said that was a good name. So I put a label on the beer, never made any more beer. And there we go. Bruno and Larry became my co-founders. And so I decided to use the name Two Wrestling Cats Coffee House instead. And actually, that's all trademarked now, too. I actually went through all the paperwork, and I have my certificate. And so that was the basis of it. And then when I started, I had just a very basic menu. I had some coffee. I learned how to make espresso drinks from the school. And I ended up going to the lengths of making different chicken salads during the summer. My first summer, we essentially put the menu together in motion. And then that menu has been there for about 9 years now. The menu that I have hasn't changed for 9 years. And I think it's amazing. It's a real testament to what we do. Well, people come in and ask for specials, and everything's special. I tell them everything's special. But anyway, so then I made my contacts about coffee equipment. I brought in that. I had to work with the folks from the planning and zoning. I had a fellow that worked out the essentially the property. I had picked up an extra acre and a quarter so I could put a parking lot in. And then I also wanted to paint the house blue. And so that was one of the most important things, I think, that the decision that I ever made, was to make sure that I brought the colors out. And so I have actually a little funny story, and I'm going to use this opportunity if I can.
Please.
When I was doing paint selection, my wife and I went up to the Home Depot and we picked up a light blue and a lime green. And so I wanted to think about using the combination. Well, we painted the light blue and the lime green on some back slats. And the next day, Mike, we'll call him the contractor, the major contractor, says to me, "Mark, you don't want to use that blue." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, no contractor is going to come in here." And the guy that was running the big truck out on the parking lot said, "Yeah, we're not going to come in here if there's a blue." And I said, "Wow." And so I went on the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, he comes into the house, and I was living there at the time with the cats. And he says, "Mark, there's blue." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Because no contractor will come in here." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because they'll think it's a gay house."
Oh,
how about that?
Wow.
And so from that point on, I said, well, this community is not going to drive me into making decisions based on their insecurities and their concerns. I went down to the first selectman. I talked with him, and he said, "Yeah, you have this sort of division within the community, and which still exists." But I said, "Okay, well, at least I understand it a little bit more." But
yeah,
and now it's blue, green, purple, yellow. I have a green deck. I have 11 colors on the rails on my back deck.
Yeah.
I support the LGBT community and diversity. I have an anti-racism banner on the front of my building. And I think that actually was a very defining moment for me to actually say, and I told my new staff at the time, I said, everybody's coming in here.
Yeah.
This is a prevailing sort of attitude with some people. That's okay. They don't need to come. And so that's helped build where we are today. How about that?
Wow, what a blessing, and how sometimes these people are put in our lives to teach us lessons and to give us inspiration, and sometimes the right way to go. And like even to the paint selection, when you're really paying attention, sometimes you just get these winks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My architect she thought, well, maybe you want to use like a colonial gray. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to use colonial gray. I was looking about orange maybe, but the blue turned out to be perfect. And it's really, and people recognize it. And it's one of these things that, you could drive down the street. It's a busy intersection in East Haddam. And people say, I came in here because I had to see what this building was about, And I said, so it's been somewhat intentional, but, we were going to do these colors regardless of how people felt.
And the cat theme, it started with the name, but then it kind of, from what I see in the pictures and from our conversations, it kind of took on a life of its own, right?
Great segue into why it is really become a cat haven. I have been so blessed with the customer base that I have, that they have essentially decorated the interior of the place with cat pictures. And I went from having art shows when I first opened to taking those down and putting cat pictures up because I just didn't have enough room for all my cat stuff. So now it's a community collective, and people come in, and I think they're a little overwhelmed. I don't notice it anymore, but it's kind of fun because people take pictures from the outside, from the inside all the time. And we have quite a collection of cat stuff. And it's just grown organically and through the community.
And you've taken it a step further with the new Wrastling Cats Lounge, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The staff, I met with them this morning. I have 5 beautiful sibling cats, 3 boys, 2 girls. And they've been there since April, and they're there for people's enjoyment, a chance for people to get in and visit with cats if they don't have cats. I've had, the cat bereavement where people have just lost their cats, so they get to go in. Local folks come in all the time, and I have people come from far away that are looking to go and visit with the cats. My goal is to actually utilize the space as a support center for people with mental disability, things like dementia and all, and have an outlet for people to come in with their relatives and all to essentially spend some time, as well as I have a new incoming drug recovery center that's coming into Haddam, and I plan on working with them to do some animal therapy.
It's amazing. And I know that, as you said, people keep coming back, and to the tune of even waiting in line. And this is a big one. So we're out in LA. So I have to bring this up because when I heard this, I'm like, what? I can't claim I've done the same, but if I was there, I'm sure I would. Waiting outside in the cold, in line, waiting to get in the coffee house. Like there's demand for what you're doing and for the community you're building.
I'm very humbled by it all. Actually, COVID changed things for us a bit. We went from closure inside to having some people inside to now having our plexiglass down. But I maintained essentially a protocol that I just want 4 people in the front at any given time. It's for their health. It makes for better also interaction with people, and people don't feel that people are breathing down their necks. So people do wait outside, and it's really remarkable. We had something recently that got a little too cold, so I took the sign down and people packed in, and I tried to get people to go to the back of the house and wait inside, but people were still waiting when it was really cold. I just recently got a review on Google. It dinged me a little bit. It was a good review, but it dinged me because because she had to wait outside. And I explained to her in my response that, it is that way. People can wait outside or they can leave. I'm not going to stay with my principal. I mean, you can stay there. And there's a sign that explicitly says that we just have 4 inside. And some people come and we don't have anybody inside, and they will stand outside because one of the lines says, we'll let you know when you can come in, because during real busy times, this is what we do, And so it's interesting that somebody would take issue with it, but because they have to stand outside, but it's okay. I can take my licks.
It's a great
people comfortable.
It's a great story. I mean, it's a great success story. And I love bringing these types of stories to our audience. And it's one of the reasons why we selected you to be an author in our upcoming book. Just for everybody watching this and listening in, just so you know, we're not going to do a deep dive into the book today or what Mark will be writing and presenting. And that's intentional because we will be bringing Mark back onto the show for part 2 of this interview once the book is actually live, and there'll be links in the show notes and all that good stuff so you can pick up a copy. But Mark, keeping it kind of high level today. Again, I know we're in editing, we're still refining the content, but high level, what are some of the kind of things that you plan to present in the upcoming book?
Well, I think that a little bit of my journey is part of that book, about some of the inspiration that I had from my parents, from my experiences. And I think I speak a little. I got this cat over here who's going to turn. She's going to turn the button on the top of this thing off. And I think just again how I used my value system to drive a business that I had no idea how it was going to turn out. But essentially, I think it's about just staying with your values, staying with your ideas of what could work. Making changes when you need to, just like I did when I was an experimenter, and moving in the right direction and all.
Yeah. No, it's great. And now I'm gonna cut you off there, pause that, because we will do a full interview once the book is actually live, and we'll go further into it. But for today, Mark, I just said, first off, it's been great having you on the show. I just have to ask, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for Two Wrestling Cats Coffee House?
Well, I think that one of the things that I plan on doing is getting my calendar open active for the new Wrestling Cat Lounge. Yeah. I have a plan to, in the front of the shop, remove some of the clutter that I have there, the cat clutter, and put in a mutique, which essentially would be shelves of cat-related items and that sort of thing. I have talked to a woman about doing some private labeled cat food. I'm thinking of doing that, and also just real cat-centric items, new T-shirts, jewelry, maybe pictures of Antaeus, hi Antaeus.
Oh, for sure.
And just real. So the front of the store will be the new Wrestling Cat Mutique, and so that's going to be sort of a project plan I'm bringing through the spring.
Oh man, that's fun, and I will say that I like building the brand. It's the next step. I love it, and it's
Yeah.
going to be fun to watch it happen. And I'll tell you, my personal wish is I can't wait till you have a book in your hand, and I want a
Yeah.
picture of you and Teus. I want the book in there and the wrestling cats in the back because I cannot, and the whole house in there, so I can show people. And I can't wait to post that one on social media because
Good.
it's going to be a classic, and it's just fun. I mean, for everybody that is not familiar with the coffee house and this is the first time they're being introduced to it, what's the best way, Mark, that they can check it out and obviously visit in person, but also check it out online because they have to see it. It's a site.
Yeah, I think the Google does a really nice job of having a compilation of pictures. I have an Instagram page. If you want to check in on the status of the anything that's going on, plus cats growing up in the lounge, and my Facebook page is what I'm doing. I'm actually redoing my website. I have somebody that's working on that right now, so that will become a little bit more interactive and all that in the future.
And what's the website address again?
TwoWrestlingCats.com.
Yeah. Great. And we'll put that in the show notes so that our audience can just click on the links and head right on over and check it out again, twowrestlingcats.com. And speaking of Two Wrestling Cats and the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or engaging in an episode or connecting with the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and hearing their stories, the ups, the downs, everything in between. And the idea is for us all to learn and grow together from that content. If that is the type of information that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Mark, until the next time, it was a pleasure working with you today. Can't wait till the next time I get to have you on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Adam. And I want to put out to the audience as well that I have been incredibly impressed by you, your staff, and the Mission Matters, franchise. Beautiful work you do, and I appreciate it.
Oh, very kind. Thank you, Mark.